We're live now.
All right. Excellent. Well, good day, everyone. Welcome
Hello,
back to
everybody.
Wheels Up Live. I'm ID Bound,
I'm Felix.
and we're glad you could join us today.
Yep.
As always, we start off our features with the news of the week, and just wanted to say that sorry we missed you for a little bit there. I was away, and such as the way these things go sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
But
well,
we're back.
we are back, and we are working on all kinds of exciting content, hopefully, coming up in the near future. We're not quite ready to say what it is yet, but
Yes.
I think you will be pleased.
Yes.
I know we're excited about some of the potential guests, and let's face it, there's some very exciting products that seem to be close to release here
Yes.
in the
Absolutely.
market, and we thought that perhaps we would start with one of the big ones
I
that
think
I
it was
know
the
we're.
most anticipated for the Navigraph survey last year.
That's right, most
So,
anticipated, which is pretty exciting. And here's the picture. Here's one of the pictures that was posted by our friends at none other than PMDG. I say friends lightly. I'm not sure that we qualify, but
yeah, I don't think we're in their friends group.
yeah,
So,
I don't think so. I'm not getting a lot of personal messages from anyone over there, which is fine. So here we have a picture of the 777 that RSR posted. Oh, I don't know. That was on February 3rd, I believe it was, that he
yeah.
put that
Some.
picture up.
Yeah.
And what we saw there is a continuing move in the process of them working through the beta.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what's your reaction, Felix, to this picture? I'm sort of curious.
I think. I mean, I'll to be honest. I've anticipated this product even without them showing the pictures of the brakes overheating here and
Right,
glowing.
right.
Just remember not to put your parking brake on. Kind of thing, unless you want to weld the brakes together. But no, I was anticipating it. I mean, I know you have it for P3D. I have it
Yeah.
for P3D. It's an exciting addition. I know there are other long haul aircraft that are kind of currently in their beta phasing, if to use that term very loosely.
Sure.
But I think a
We'll
lot
use
of
it
people,
loosely.
yeah, we'll use it very loosely for that particular add-on. But this for the 777, I mean, it kind of checks all the boxes, right? You can go to your airport, you can see a lot of them, especially if you're here in the United States. Heck, in the United States, you could probably fly on one, even if you don't leave this country. Especially if you're flying somebody like American or United.
Yeah, there's a decent
Um,
possibility, yes.
yeah, there's a depending if you live in a trunk city or something, and of course the modeling, it's this is very kind of classic PMDG. They're trying to highlight, look at the details. Also, the other thing that we don't really have here, but was actually a question I asked in their forums was about Hoppy CPDLC and integrating it. And of course, I've actually seen that comment kind of make the rounds in Discord
And
um,
on their forum, you're not
and
the
on
only
the,
one who's asked about it.
yeah, and I'm not the only one on who's asked about it. And it seems that they are going to take that step. I think that, to use our phrase, PMDG has given up the ghost on trying to hold off with global flight operations, or GFO. And I think we're going to see a lot more kind of what you and I especially would consider the standard kind of quality of life items for these kinds of airplanes being implemented now, and it's refreshing. Now, the thing we don't know anything about, we have yet to see. We would like to hear at least some comment on it. Is LNAV 2.0? I mean, we're going to say, hey, PMDG is great, but we're also going to sit here and be like, you guys have promised this since for years, and there's nothing on it. So, but I know they're working with Navigraph. I know that that's maybe a part of the discussion. I don't know, but you know,
Well, I think you've hit on a couple of really interesting points there that I think are worth delving into just a little bit before we get on to some of the other news of the week. The thing that strikes me, you talk about CPDLC. There was a discussion of Hoppy in their forum. It's plain that Randazzo is not a huge fan of Hoppy. He
yes,
threw a few bombs at it, but on the flip side, I think it's also self-evident that whatever GFO is at the moment, it's not ready.
Yep.
And I don't think that they're blind to the issue of people wanting to use these tools in the sim, because if you are serious about quote unquote realism,
Yes.
there needs to be something in that category, because that's
Yes.
how these planes operate. It's just
Mhm.
how it's done.
The triple
And
seven. I mean, not to interrupt you. I'm
yeah,
sorry, but the triple
no,
seven
please.
just specifically has one of the first and one of the best CPDLC interfaces via the com menu. It's absolutely
Right.
fantastic how it's implemented. So
And it's funny you mentioned it, because that's exactly one of the things I was going to say was, you and I both have the same just planes of the Air Canada 777 Polar
yes,
Ops. And
yeah,
but in that video, you get a really good sense of how good that
hmm,
CPDLC, but
yeah,
also ACARS, because it's, in a lot of ways,
yeah,
ACARS is even more important than the
yes,
CPDLC.
absolutely,
There's some element in there where they're dealing with one of the uh, one of the oceanic or polar control operations, where they were having trouble with where the
yep,
CPDLC isn't working, and they're getting on the HF, and it's a whole mess. But that ACARS is golden in there, and it really looks incredible. But I think they're recognizing that. I don't know what they think they're going to do about it. I'm not 100% sure we're going to see it in there. I think Randazzo's may have a little different view than somebody like Thias, or whatever you Mathis. I'm not sure exactly how you
Matthias, I
pronounce
think
it.
is,
Thias Koch,
yeah,
who they've brought in, who probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a little more open-minded about that, in the sense that I think he recognizes that it's hard to roll your own of everything. And that's
yes,
been a hallmark of PMDG. We want to roll our own this, we want to roll our own that. Well, even in P3D, they had to bite the bullet at some point and say, well, I'm not rolling my own weather system.
yeah,
And they adopted Active Sky and figured out how to work that
hmm,
into it. And I think this is one of those ones where they're going to have to do it. Now, there could be a disparity between the PC version and Xbox because of
which is yeah,
copy or some such. I don't know, but some of these things, some of these differences may be inevitable. But I really feel like, and the LNAV point that you raise is another excellent one. There's a long, long, long time
yes,
PMDG user slash forum
yep,
poster who really laid into them on it,
yes,
and he got a very nasty response
yeah.
from Randazzo about it. But at the same time, he wasn't wrong,
It wasn't wrong. I
right?
had a message that I have from March 2019 when they were talking about it in the NGXU about it being implemented then P3D before Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 was announced,
Right.
and so this has been a long time they've coming. I mean, you have a brand new plane and a brand new sim, and there's a 737 Max and an older sim from iFly that can do RF legs.
Right.
And the real plane's been able to do RF legs for years. So it's I think they're on firmware update 14 or 15 in the real world, something like that.
In the
And
737.
in the NG and the
Yeah,
Max,
yeah. I
yeah,
think it's
yeah, and
15 or
yeah,
16. I think you're
hmm,
right.
yeah,
If
and they've had it since like update like 7 or 8 since then, and
That's
so
right.
so
And
so it's just like one of those things that's like, I know that PMD, like, we were excited for this product and obviously we're going to buy it. Like, let's not say here, like, this is our line in the
oh
sand that
no,
we're
not
not,
for me. It's not. I
yeah,
don't
this
have a
is not a
line in the
line.
sand on that.
But
I don't.
I think because they tout themselves as they're like the standard in the industry. Well,
Yes.
other add-on makers have risen above that standard. And if you want to compete, especially for money, if you want to say, "Hey, this is the bar," you've got to meet the bar at least. Like,
And
that's
and I
just the bottom line.
that's where I think you're right. On the upside, that whatever comes out is going to be a solid
Yes,
implementation of a 777. And I will
yes,
tell you that this morning I broke out the P3D and flew the 777, because I have been sort of gearing up for it, sort of
yeah,
refreshing my memory on operating it and all of those things. It's a great aircraft.
it is.
Even with having to do, sim brief downloading with it and stuff like that, it's very good. But a reminder of things that sort of get left in the lurch.
Hmm.
I had planned a flight to go from Heathrow to
Oh, I think
Mallorca
I know
in
what you're
a
going to talk about.
777 freighter. And what happened, Felix?
My guess is you had to contact controllers that were not on a 25 kilohertz frequency.
That's correct. And in fact, all I really did was I just decided it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, having a
And it's
type
not.
.com one on VATSIM, and I know that honestly, here's we both use VATSIM, and we're not trying to drag this on, but it does kind of bring up some points about VATSIM is not the majority of flight simmers, by the way. In fact,
No, I know.
I've learned that like it was kind of funny. So DCS, which is a totally different thing, they did a study. I think they did a little survey. They found that 80% of their users were using DCS as single player only. They weren't going online. They weren't using multiplayer. So,
Yeah.
I understand where something like that is not necessarily going to. You're not pandering to a large audience. Now, even though we fly it, and pretty much everybody that we talk to flies on VATSIM in some capacity, and we're involved in a lot of those communities, that's not the majority of flight simmers. That's not to say that's not right, and and it's still a large population of users, but it's just one of those things that, as you said, IAD, it's one of those things that we talk about. There's a standard, and it just makes it to where you don't want to use it because they don't have these things that other add-ons have, such as integrated Hoppy CPDLC, such as the 8.33 kilohertz spacing. It's a pain in the butt to sit there and type .com one in the client every single time. And if you're in Amsterdam or somewhere, you're doing it every 2 minutes. Yeah. While, by the way, you're trying to fly and you're trying to handle the aircraft as well.
In the busiest part of the flight is when you're going to be doing that. Now, I would say that I'm confident the new one's going to have 8.33 kilohertz.
Well, that's base, yeah.
Right, because the 737 does. But my only point being there is we talk about feature complete. Whatever they put out, it's going to work. But will it be feature complete? I don't know. And in my mind, I think you're right. They need to be feature complete if you want to be in that top tier. If you want to make that argument that you're really putting the best, most immersive simulation out there, you need that. I think having the umpteenth failure is also a mark of quality. But I think those basic, as you put it, quality of life items are really important. So, well, all right, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I would say, much like you, I'm ready for it to come out.
Yes, I am.
Whatever it is, I'm ready.
And whichever variant, by the way, that's another conversation we've seen.
Yeah, I don't care about that. I think some of you may have seen. I put a post up the other day where I said you would think we were talking about entirely different planes the way you guys carry on about variants.
Exactly.
And inside the cockpit, I dare you to tell me what the hell the difference is. I mean, we all want to fly certain things.
Newsflash: there isn't one.
Right. But all well, right. All you know where the difference is when you go to the ident page in the FMC. It'll tell you there's a difference. And I'll say this, so today I was flying the freighter, which bet dimes to dollars is going to be the first one that comes out because it's going to be the LR. I'm sure it's going to be the 200 LR / freighter. Since they're basically the same plane, and it's a great plane.
Oh, I love the freighter. And the freighter is like my favorite one, to be honest.
Right. And one thing that's great, and I say this to everyone, enjoy the freighter because it gives for those of you who really like to fly quote unquote real life flights and don't like to have fake stuff or made up routes. It gives you so many opportunities to fly short haul routes. So when you've got
places you probably never would have gone to before.
Exactly. And when you've got 2 hours, hop in it and go enjoy the hell out of that plane because it's going to be. I think it's going to be a big release.
Yeah, it is
for MSFS. All right. Well, all right. We clobbered that one. So other news of the week.
Sorry, I saw a friend of ours posted. Comments.
Somebody's on. What? So what did they say? What do we got? What's our comment?
He said purists. So, and we know who that individual is. But,
I feel like G might be somewhere nearby, but I could be wrong. Okay. I apologize that I'm not seeing the chat, but I'm glad you are. So if something comes up on there, please let me know. So
I will.
The other, in our news of the week, one of the other things that we talked about just a couple of weeks ago was, as our feature, was the explosion of really, really great general aviation planes in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And we just had another,
We did.
which is the Cow's DA42.
Yes, the
Uh,
Diamond.
yeah, I know it's a plane that of particular interest to you, so I'll
Yeah, so it's not a particular interest to me in so much as there's a distinct possibility that especially because I have talked about wanting to do real world flight training. There's a distinct possibility that I could end up flying one at some point in the future. But this has kind of become the little twin engine training aircraft that a lot of the big time, I'll call it a pilot mill, but a lot of the big time, at least what we call here in the U.S., 141 schools. But yeah, and so it's both the diesel, so it's the TDI, and it's the inlines, the regulars, the six inline six versions. Of course, I think it's Garmin 1000. Yeah, it's the G1000, but it's only like 46 Australian dollars, so like it's like 30 something US dollars. Absolute steal.
yeah.
That's the other thing I want to say about our Microsoft Flight Simulator. Other than that, we're getting really high quality GA aircraft that you can fly in a really nice looking sim. The prices are just significantly lower. Like I think what was the AccuSim for P3D? It's like $89 or $90 for a 172, and you're looking at yourself like,
It's actually it wasn't quite that much, but they had like two different versions. They had the quote unquote, they did the academic and the
the
pro
academic
versions.
one. Yes,
Was
yeah,
the academic one was still reasonable, but yes, but yeah, they
mm,
were relatively expensive. I don't think
yeah,
A2A's wildly changed their pricing just yet, but in general, no, you're right. Everything's much more reasonable as a general proposition, and at price points where you were getting very
yeah,
meh planes in
yeah,
P3D or X plane, frankly,
hmm
you're getting some really great
yeah.
products,
So if
and
you want to,
scenery too.
yeah, Scener has come down too. So
Yeah,
if you guys want a good piston twin, or technically a diesel still piston, and not,
fine.
but if you still want to, if you want a good piston twin, you've got the Diamond, and it's out there, and it's got Garmin. So if you don't want a clock shop, that's right up your alley.
I will say one thing on these various releases is there are a number of good twins.
Yeah,
So we have that one. We've got the 414. We got the
yeah, which I
310.
own.
Right.
I have
Yeah,
the
we got the
414.
310. A lot of people swear by the Black Square Baron.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a Duke coming or a Duchess.
Duchess was for X Plane 12, I believe.
Okay, there's a Duke coming. The Duke coming.
Maybe the Duke.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Duke is coming from Black Square. They're making a lot of noise about how that's their best one. The only thing is with all of these, what I think will be interesting to see is where, if in terms of all these flight dynamics and this, the other things that kind of make these special is I feel like A2A probably still has a little edge right now because of AccuSim and how they've
yeah,
brought 2.0 with the Comanche. I'm going to go slightly out of order here with respect to that,
that's
our
fine.
news of the week, because
Of the
continuing on with our GA discussion, I think one of the big announcements of the week that a lot of the hardcore simmers are probably sleeping on, but which I think is uh, a real milestone for Microsoft Flight Simulator, is that A2A has brought the Comanche to Xbox.
to Xbox, very important. Yeah,
And now, admittedly, I'm not 100% sure how all of their modeling that they've done in terms of flight dynamics, et cetera, are handled in this move to the Xbox. We've historically heard about external models. That was true in P3D. I think it's very true in X-Plane. Uh,
yeah, it
and,
is. It's true. Next one as well. Yeah,
right. And initially with the Comanche, the sound model was even a separate thing. Then they rolled that into the primary product. Um, from what I can tell, it seems as though they have now found a way to fully integrate whatever they're doing with AccuSim so that they can put it out in marketplace and put it out
that's
in
fantastic.
Xbox. And that suggests to me that one other thing that might be very interesting is when we talk about quote unquote sim limitations, what are those in practice, and how are developers adapting to that or working around
Yeah,
that? Because it's a common a common argument that we've heard. Sim limitation,
Yeah, we
SDK.
see that a lot of sim limitations, especially with the weather, right? I think that was a big
Right.
one, or the ground handling is one
Right.
of the big pain points for them.
Yes.
So
Eh, Now, admittedly, in the case of Microsoft, they have made it pretty clear that they are aware of some of these issues. I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know how far or when or ever we'll get through some of these questions about the weather API issue.
I think it's
But
20. I think it's honestly at this point. I saw some comments that a lot of it was the reason we're doing 2024 is because we hit this technological coding, or maybe coding, or did we hit the technology wall? We can't do anything without basically rewriting huge sections of the code. At which point we might as well go. And we have to remember they're a business too. So obviously, if they're going to see an opportunity for dollar signs, then they're going to go for it. And you
right,
can say whatever you want about that, but that's just those are the present realities, right? But if that means that we're going to get a sim where we're going to have an accurate weather API, where we're going to get to enjoy what we had in P3D with like Active Sky, right? Those,
right,
which is fantastic, one of the best weather experiences you can have in a flight sim, especially when it's integrated with a good working weather radar. Um, so yeah, who knows? But I don't think these questions are going to be answered in 2020. That's just my feeling, especially if 2024 is releasing this year. I don't see that. I don't see them like totally foregoing the sim, but I see them, kind of shoving that off, specifically weather. But more to your point is that there are some developers that are figuring out ways to make things work. We
yep,
talked about Raul. Raul has done amazing things with his products that do rely somewhat on things that are in the default sim. And so AccuSim, even though they're external, they figured out a way to take that external model or whatever they were doing,
right.
external program, put it into the sim and make it accessible to Xbox users, which I think is fantastic.
Right. And
Because
and I don't know if you're in their Discord, the A2A
I'm
Discord,
not,
but I've seen a good number of posts from people who are very, very happy to have it in Xbox.
which is good. That's fantastic. Those people, Raul said, you get a lot of people who get on Xbox and then like, you know what, I want more stuff anyway. I'm going to get to the PC. It only helps us. And just as a side thing, I really don't appreciate people when they try to like down Xbox like it's taking away something. Xbox has brought a lot to this hobby. I've been here a long time. Without Xbox, this sim that we have right now wouldn't be half of what it is. Without the money that Xbox is putting, without the people that are coming to the sim that are now, and then there's the thing of what's it doing for aviation, right? Because we've now reached a point where civilian pilots and civilian trained pilots are now usurping what's happened. And not to go on a dialogue, what's happened with military pilots, which used to be the traditional,
Well,
used to be like
long
skewed the
time
other
ago,
way,
right?
right?
But
Yeah, and
didn't
so
that happen some time ago at this
that was
point?
like it's been multiple decades, but still, I mean, we're at an age where people are starting on the sim, and that's creating their
Right.
passion for flying,
That
right?
that is it. That's the key, right? Is you're
Yeah,
starting on the sim. It's inspiring people. I know I I don't know the person directly, but I heard kind of a fun story about a teenager who found flight sim and basically begged their parents to let them go fly. And that's
exactly.
exactly what happened. Okay, well, our other big news story of the week comes from Phoenix, the famous Phoenix A320,
Most
and
boring aircraft on the world, by the way. I'm just
okay.
gonna put that out there.
Yeah, all right, all right. Sure, sure, sure. So Phoenix, as you know, for all you I'm sure know, Phoenix, of course, has put out an A320, and it's been almost 2 years now since that A320 was released. It was the CFM
Yes.
models, which is sort of your the basic original A320 with the wingtip fences.
Yeah.
And what I
The
think most
200. Sorry, I have to be a purist here and say that's the 100 didn't have wingtip fences, but I digress.
All right.
Yes, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. Wingtip fences, what most of you recognize as sort of, we'll call it the base A320.
Yes.
CFM engines, wingtip fences, none of the bells and whistles of some of the later iterations of the A320s. no sharklets, no variant, no engine variants, no IAE engines, no 319 models, no 321 models, that sort of thing. Now,
Hmm.
but I think most people agree that it was probably one of the most impressive releases in Microsoft Flight Simulator, particularly for a modern airliner. But like anything, and particularly as a newcomer to the business, which I think really shocked people with how well they did, they found that there were things that needed changes and upgrades and modifications to bring them more in line with the real aircraft handling, performance, a whole variety of elements, as well as offering things like the IAE engines. And in that process of doing that, they also announced that they're going to eventually release a 319 and a 321. But last year, when I think Phoenix itself created an expectation that they were going to bring this major update, which they called Block 2, to the sim. They found themselves hitting challenges that perhaps they didn't fully anticipate. And they took a step back and said, well, we're gonna go back to the drawing, not literally the drawing board, but we're gonna sort of go back to the drawing board. We're gonna step away from the timelines that we talked about. And since then, probably, gosh, that was around September, so we've had about 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 months almost
Yeah.
since then. But earlier this week, it was this week, yes, I believe, they put out a video as well as an explanation about what they've been working on. It was about a 42-minute video. I think that it probably assuaged a lot of the critics and a lot of the people who were very frustrated with them, assuaged them in that this major new release is coming and that they have done real work, real significant work to dig into some of the questions that people had about what was right or wrong with this aircraft, and to, I think, further untether themselves from the base input to the sim, which is ProSim, the ProSim A320, which they had a license for, which helped them get the thing to market in the first place. But I think that they are working hard ultimately to substitute their own code for what I think is a lot of ProSim code based on the way they've sort of described it. The other big shocker in this little tidbit that they added was that, oh, and by the way, we are going to expand the ability to interface hardware with certain elements of the plane that have previously been locked down, which was essentially uh, outputting data from any of the displays like the altitude, speed, those sorts of things that factor into external hardware like the new mini cockpit
The
FCU,
mini FCU,
the
yeah.
mini FCU, which is a nice little piece of
I
hardware.
actually wanted to check that out for $100. That seemed getting into hardware, which is going to be our topic. But yeah,
Right, right. Well, as you might have guessed, I bought one for 99 bucks.
how do you like it?
It's so far it's a little tad bit of a paperweight, but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
It's here. It looks good. It feels pretty good. I don't love the suction cups, but that's a different issue that we
Ah,
can talk
yeah.
about. But with that, I guess that sort of
Best of luck to Phoenix. That's all I'm going to say. I think the A320 is the most boring aircraft in the world, but that also makes a safe aircraft. So best of luck to them. I'm looking forward to the. I'll tell you, I look forward to their 319 and their 321 because on different ends of the spectrum, they have mean performance versus the A320, which is just kind of so. Yeah.
well, one thing I would say, I understand the element that the A320 has a high degree of automation, which might make it boring in some elements. I think one of the things that makes it extremely useful for a lot of simmers, in my mind, is because it is a very capable aircraft and relatively easy for one pilot to manage.
Yes.
I think it's a great choice for flying online with
I
because
would agree. I like and I like there are certain things about other add-ons like the Flight Sim Labs A320 that has the CPDLC
yep,
integration. That makes it really nice to
yep.
use. So
And Phoenix has some of that too,
Yep,
which I also appreciate.
and also the tallest. But again, we
Yeah.
have a million A320s, no A340 or A330. None of those. But
Well, in
A320.
Microsoft Flight Simulator, obviously, there's an
Yeah.
A340 available from Tollus. I think most people, and there was a big update for it not
Yes,
that
there
long
was.
ago.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfectly competent aircraft. You see many people use it, but I do think the A320 is a good plane for flying online with. It's a hell of a lot easier than trying to manage the Concorde. Okay, which brings us to our feature of the week. Our feature of the week, we are talking about, in the first instance, the decline of Honeycomb Aeronautical. And I think we're also
Like a
going to
star, it rose and then
right, seems to be in some trouble, or it's dimmed. And
yes.
I think that, and we're also going to talk a little bit more generally then about sort of the landscape of flight sim hardware and where we are with that. So obviously, I think anyone who's watching this has probably heard of Honeycomb Aeronautical and their very well known products, the Honeycomb Alpha, the Honeycomb Bravo, and the yet to be released,
Charlie.
and we'll ever see if it happens, the Charlie, which is the rudder pedals. I will say that I own the Alpha, I own the Bravo. The Alpha got retired relatively quickly. Not a massive fan of the Alpha for me personally. However, that said, it's an extremely competent piece of hardware. But that Honeycomb Bravo is perhaps one of the real jack of all trades.
Oh man, I love the Bravo. That was one of the biggest kind of like it's not an upset, but it's one of the biggest kind of shakeups in flight sim hardware, especially for civilian. It's so multifaceted and versatile with
Yeah,
what it did.
and I think, as far as I can tell, I think it's one of the products that has achieved sort of universal acclaim for
Yes.
that versatility. There have been naturally some complaints about build quality or things that are broken. That is a tough one because at the price point that they chose, which is around $279 US, certainly not a cheap product, but it pales in comparison to some of the pricing that we see in other niche products in this market. Say, for example, the Virtual Fly TQ6 Plus. It has 6 levers.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Okay,
Yes.
6 levers. It's way more money. Now, in some ways, the build quality is better, right? It's got heavy metal in it. When you go into the reverse detents, it's not a button; it's an actual access still. I mean, there's some elements to it that are completely different. But the handles aren't interchangeable. I mean, the flexibility. It's an interesting product. It's a very nice product, but the Honeycomb Bravos really filling, in my mind, a key niche.
Yes.
But then we have a problem now. It's what's happened with Honeycomb, and I want to delve into a little bit in more detail. So uh, I'll back up on timeline a little bit. A number of months ago, so let's put it in about 9 months now. We're almost coming up on a year,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where we have seen a persistent problem showing up in forums and discords where people who had issues with their Honeycomb could not get it serviced.
Yes.
Or they were slow to respond. Maybe they responded, maybe they didn't respond, but they were essentially left in limbo.
Mm-hmm.
About the same time, Honeycomb started taking pre orders for the Charlie, which was the rudder pedals that were coming out. And so far to date, they haven't shipped a single one. And as we progressed at Flight Sim Expo last year in June, they were there. They even hyped some new products. However, when you actually went to their booth, it wasn't really clear what the hell was going on with these new products. If they were really doing something, it was kind of hard to tell. Even some of the new, like handles and things that they had promoted, because they were going to have a little rubber gate thing for flaps, stuff like that. You looked at them; they seemed like they might be okay, but they just didn't say. It just didn't give any indication that they were doing well, or that the new stuff was really going to be something you wanted. And I think that there was an element there where Honeycomb, when you compared them to, say, the Thrustmaster booth, they looked like amateur hour. Yeah, they're a much smaller company, but something seemed wrong.
I mean, so is TFDI, and they seem to have a pretty, from what you just even showed me, they had a pretty good presence at FS Expo. So,
Oh yeah, they totally did. But my only point there being, from that point on, things seem to have declined rapidly.
sure,
We
sure.
got to a point where now nobody has heard, people hadn't heard from Honeycomb in months. Occasionally, Honeycomb would take to their Facebook page, which, if you ask me, is no way to communicate with people, but that's fine.
It's not.
Took to their Facebook page to say things like, "Oh, we're real sorry. We're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it." Well, were they? I have no idea. But eventually, the hue and cry about where the heck are you got to be quite loud in
Yep.
all of the public forums that I was seeing, to the point where I personally was literally checking the bankruptcy docket in the Southern District of California to see if they had filed bankruptcy. Now they haven't. I didn't see a filing in there, but I'm just saying it looked to me like they were well on their way to bankruptcy. And then right at the end of January, we got, well, I don't know how to describe it.
Trouble in Paradise.
Trouble in Paradise email, and we didn't
Yeah.
just get one email, mind you. We got one email broken into three parts.
Yeah, it was a pretty lengthy. I actually sat and read through it myself.
Right. And
Yeah.
here is some of it. This is part of part one of this email. And my reaction to it is, it shocked me in the sense that it made it clear that nobody knows who is in charge and
Mm-hmm.
nobody knows who's running this company. I don't know what your reaction was, Felix.
I mean, I don't want to use certain words, but I definitely, um, it didn't pass the sniff test. Let's say that way. Something there was a lot more going on, but this email, this string of emails, left me with more questions and answers, and none of them were good. And I'm probably never going to get answers to those questions. But this email did not leave me with the warm and fuzzies. I'm a Bravo owner myself. I got it as a birthday present for myself last year. I've had it over a year. I haven't had any problems with it. But fortunately for me, that I seem to be maybe more of an exception. But no, the email left me like they're talking about business partner. It sounds like they're throwing the business partner maybe not necessarily under the bus, but under the bus, and like, oh man, I don't know what else to describe it. I've seen, so I have, without going into detail, I have know somebody very close to me that had something similar happen to their business. Okay, so I can actually see where there's a legitimate claim to be made that a business partner um, was doing nefarious things behind the scenes, trying to say, "Oh, it's okay, it's going to get better." No, I'm taking care of it. I'm taking care of it. Meanwhile, they're behind the scenes and they're doing nefarious activities. And again, I'm not going to get into that. And I'm not going to try to speculate that that's what's going on with Honeycomb. I'm just going to say that it's not passing the sniff test for me. It's like you said, who owns what, who's doing what. There's no clear delineation of what's going on. And, then we got the new email that was like, hey, disregard what that guy said because he's
Right.
no longer with us, and you're like, whoa, like this is, this is, I don't know if it's as big as some of the flight sim dramas like test.exe and stuff we've had, but this is a pretty like interesting flight sim drama stuff that's going on here with Honeycomb and what their future is and what that's going to look like. So
Yeah, right. I mean, in terms of hardware, I think this is a pretty colossal development
It is.
insofar as, Honeycomb seemed to have found a niche, a badly needed gap filler between some, standard introductory hardware, which is all very competent but somewhat limited, and real high end use specific hardware.
Yes.
And so what we see, I think, in the Honeycomb, it was a very clever way to approach giving people a real hands-on device that could be used for GA, commercial, with and switching between them with relative ease.
Oh, I think
Uh,
it's easy. I
yeah.
can. It's not even. I think it's one of the more ingenious ways to do it. I mean, hold on. Let me see if I can.
So here,
Sorry.
I can put your setup up.
No, no, it was okay. I was just gonna say, look, that's the flap handle for the. Well, this is not from Honeycomb. This is from a
Right.
third party vendor, but
It looks like an
it's for the
MD11
MD11.
flap
Yeah,
handle. Yeah.
or
Well,
that's the
which
spoiler handle. Yeah.
right. But just to come back around to the question of who's running it or any of those things, I think one of the things that struck me in this is that since the second email from the unknown person at Honeycomb, who says that Nikki Reppening, who has been the face of the business, appears to be out.
Yeah.
Um, Reppening came back and said, "Well, I don't know. We're still talking about stuff, but I don't know who he's talking to, because my sense is whoever these other business holder owners at Honeycomb are have moved on without him."
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that they said in their email is, "Well, not to worry. We're going to ship Charlie's for everyone who pre-ordered them in June." And at the end of like June 24th, that's a long way off. And I'm not at all convinced that these claims seem to line up with what's happened since then, because in addition to that, they said, well, we're going to give you refunds.
Yeah.
Anyone who said they wanted to cancel could get a refund. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what the email said. The email said, well, maybe do your best. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And others have been advised similarly at various points. And I think that the upshot is I have not seen any action that suggests that refunds have been handed out to anybody. There's been
Yep.
no indication of it. They said they
I've
come in
never heard
February.
from nobody I know that ordered the Charlies has gotten any sort of refund.
Right, or offers of it or whatever.
Yeah.
It's now February 18th, right? So I mean, this
Yeah.
other email came early February. Nothing has happened on that front. If you go to their website, you still can't order from their store.
No, you can't. Yeah,
right?
they're not accepting payments.
They're not accepting payments. Well, guess what? If I'm a healthy, happy operating organization, I would think that'd be one of the first things I'd want to fix up.
Yes.
And then they said, well, anyone who cancels, we're going to make all the slots for those Charlies available. I haven't seen anything that suggests that they've actually done that. Could they do that in the coming days? They might. I don't know what their issues are that they're trying to sort out. But they also made it sound like they're significantly reorganizing all of the customer support functions, which I have to guess we're out of San Diego. I don't know for sure, but at least maybe being managed from there. That's where Revening was. If they're moving that, I don't know what any of that means. I don't think anybody else does either. I haven't seen any change in their corporate documents. Those are available online. I haven't seen those. It's a puzzler. And here's the thing, just as a kind of final note on Honeycomb before we move to the broader hardware discussion is, if you've got a Charlie order out there or you're thinking about getting some Honeycomb products, just please be aware that you may want to think long and hard about that before you buy
Yeah.
it right
I'm
now.
gonna say I'm personally saving up money for another throttle piece of hardware just in case. And what sucks is I can't get anything like this, right?
Not right
So
now.
I'm gonna have to stick with it, and even if an axis breaks, I'm just gonna have to make do. I've got my other, and I know you're gonna show my setup in
Here we
a
go. Here
bit.
it is.
Yeah, and I've got below the below the Bravo, which is right there. You can actually I have a single piece throttle for my HOTAS, which I would use in any case until they changed it. Yeah. So of course, beyond Honeycomb, we go to the hardware discussion, right? So obviously, this is more of a podcast thing with the the boom mic here, but yeah, I think if we want to go to a broader discussion, well, not talking about Honeycomb's woes, but what did Honeycomb do? Is
Yep.
they bridged a gap between, and there are other companies, by the way. Honeycomb, I think a lot of people have this misconception that Honeycomb was kind of alone. They're not,
No.
but they were kind of in the civilian world. They had this they with the products they did, and the civilian market for flight sim is the most prevalent by far and away. They filled the niche of, as you said, the user specific. Like right now, if you had the money, you go get some flight deck solutions hardware. You can do that, and
Yes,
you can
please.
spend yeah, and I think we're all for that. But the low end of flight deck solutions is their FMS. Can't you buy their CPU standalone? I think
You can.
you can, and I don't know how much that is, but it's not
I
under.
think it's about. uh, I wanted to say it was 800, but I don't think that's right. I think that's the Cockpit Master. I think the one from FDS is, I think, 1200.
And there you go. Look, 1,200. My whole setup that you just saw was, well, I mean, if you exclude the monitor, it wasn't twelve
Yeah.
hundred dollars. So, but then you have the low end, right? Like you have the old school, like the. I mean, honestly, I consider the Thrustmaster Airbus TCA. That's kind of low end. You're not getting a lot for it.
No.
I had the 1,600 stick. I had that. I had that stick, but just the base version of it, the throttle. So you can get those. You can go. The mid tier now is basically HOTAS, right? So that's Virpil, VKB, which is what I have. I have the NXT Gladiator, and I'm trying to think. So Virpil, VKB, some of the side techs like the X56, you could start to get in. There's
Right.
some Turtle Beach stuff.
You can buy the Thrustmaster Warthog series.
Yes, and that's middle of the road as well. Thrustmaster, I would say, is definitely middle of the road. Obviously,
Some
I
of them
know
are.
you.
They run the gamut. They've got, that's at the high end of the Thrustmaster
Yeah,
line, but
hmm
pricing wise, it's in more the mid tier
yeah, they
price
do
range.
run the gamut because, like you said, they have the Boeing yoke, which is a pretty cool little bespoke piece of hardware.
Yes.
Um, and Oh man, sorry, I kind of lost train of thought where I was going with that. But as far as like with what Honeycomb did with, they filled a niche market, and it's kind of sucks because for the civilian market, for the kind of throttle, like I specifically like the Bravo. I think the Alpha is kind of meh.
Yeah.
Cytec, Logitech now had the same product. I had that version way back when I first started simming the Cytec yoke. Um, it was kind of cheap, chintzy. The Alpha kind of felt like the material was a little better, the plastics were a little
It
better,
is.
but I mean, I don't know. I like the pendular motion of the Boeing yoke. I just think it has too much real estate.
It's a
Um,
very large yoke.
yeah,
I can attest to that. I
yeah,
can
and
attest to that.
so
I have one. It's quite large.
so you can run the gambit on peripherals, but I will say, and you mentioned about Xbox earlier, right? I was gathering kind of our news, what we were going to do for our news segments, just reading up, polishing, catching up on some notes, and I saw that Thrustmaster released what they call, or it was Turtle Beach released a HOTAS for Xbox, which I think is really interesting because now you're starting to get to a scene where the Microsoft Flight Simulator is so good that people potentially are actually buying hardware for Xbox. Whereas that was kind of more in the realm of PC, beyond like maybe, they had a simple joystick. But this looked very similar to the X56, which a lot of people like.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and
oh,
that's one of the things that Honeycomb actually tried to do, was add a little Xbox
yeah.
compatibility, but and integrate it into one of the newer versions of the Alpha. But yeah, no, I think it's great that you're seeing that. And one of the other things that I think was fascinating about the Honeycomb, and which I'm hoping, if we carry on, that someone who brings maybe something similar to market might consider, is that Honeycomb sprouted a considerable third party add-on business.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
you pull that up again. The flap lever that you had, because
Yeah, so I've got, so this is technically, like I said, this is from oh my gosh, the guy's Flight Sim Factory, and I'm
Flight
not
Sim
trying to
Factory.
plug him.
The guy's name is Donnie, by the way.
He
He's a
did
good
not
guy.
he did not pay for any advertisements
Or
here.
or me. Or me either.
Yep, he didn't pay any of us. But this is the purple flap lever. It's got a nice little spring detent here. I don't have it in because it's actually, I use it, believe it or not, for like every aircraft. So I just
Do
don't
you?
have the. Yeah, I use it for everything. If you look up my set, if you pull a picture of my setup up,
Yeah, I'll
you'll
pull it
notice
back up.
I've got it kind of like um, jerry rigged right now. It's got a commercial
All right.
throttle,
All
and it's
right,
got the
here, I
MD-11.
got it back up now.
So if you see, there's no detents, but you see the four throttles. That's if I fly like the PMDG 747 or that Concorde or something. It's got four throttles. And then of course the spoiler and everything. But yeah, no, and that's another thing. That guy Donnie from Flight Sim Factory has done a really good, and he was obviously very concerned about the developments
Oh,
that are happening. And there are other people too, by the way. It's not just him, but if you've got a 3D printer
yeah,
and you
there's
have a
a
little bit of
number of
CAD
vendors.
knowledge, you can sit there and make your own. And some of the things I've seen have been fantastic. They're almost one-to-one real world scale. Um, and they're relatively reasonably priced, because if you try to get the throttle quadrant for a 737, and it's just a quadrant, it's not the
Yeah.
pedestal, just a quadrant, it's like 2,700 euros.
Right, right. And
And so
and that's a one that's a it's not one use. You can obviously use it, but inherently it
but try to
presents
use
some
it for an
limitations.
Airbus. I'm just saying.
Right, right. That's
It's got no
exactly it.
detents. It's got nothing.
But here's also where this really gets tricky, is that not only do we have this issue with Honeycomb, just in terms of are they going to support this thing, what's going to happen to it, but in order for a lot of those 3D printed parts to do the thing that they do, you need to bolt them on in whole or in
Yeah.
part to the commercial lever sets,
Hmm.
and
Can't
they're
get them.
almost
They're
impossible
hard
to
to come
get.
by. They're
Almost
Yeah.
impossible to get right now. I think I've seen a few hanging around out there. I actually bought two from on not Etsy, on eBay. They shipped them from Japan. I don't know how they had them there, but they work. It's fine, but next to impossible to find right
And I
now.
think
So
that, and I think what you'll see is you're going to see the cream rise to the top. You're going to see all the ones that are there. So they may be concerned, but any good business person is pivoting, right? They're learning how to pivot. So they're probably going to try to make an all-in-one inclusive piece. Now that cost may end up being eaten by us, because that's how those things go.
yeah,
But that may be one of the ways that those people survive, and I hope so. Um, my ultimate hope for Honeycomb is that somebody buys them out, that
yeah,
somebody sees it, they buy them out, and they continue to do what they're doing. And hopefully that doesn't mean degradation of quality. I know that sometimes those kind of buyouts and mergers and things
yeah.
can ultimately mean a degradation in quality. Uh, I don't know, but I feel like with what we've seen, that's the only shot. But as far as peripherals, I mean, it's just kind of a thing with flight sim, right? That's just kind of what in order to have this to be immersed in this hobby. Obviously without going to a real plane, or a lot of us don't have the money to go to and have our own home cockpits. It's a very,
Right,
very, even
right.
to
Or the
build them,
space. Yeah,
in the
the money, or the
space,
space, or a
money, and
hundred other
so
things.
these peripherals, the HOTAS, the some of the yoke combinations, and like you said, they go from the floor and to the ceiling with price, but nobody
Yes.
was really there in the middle, especially with the yoke piece. But these peripherals are how we kind of interact with the sim. And it makes this experience more immersive,
And I might
right?
even argue in the Honeycomb, in some ways, it's the throttle quadrant you didn't even know that you really want it, because
Honestly,
I think they
yeah.
took people by surprise with it.
I would agree. I think
Yeah.
like when I have people like the Bravo, I was like, oh, and there was a couple people I was asking. I think I asked you too. I was like, oh, hey, what do you think of this? Um, should I get it? And a lot of people were like, dude, get it. Changed my life, right?
Right. No, it's a great piece of kit. Now, For those of you who may not know, I'm sort of a hardware junkie. I'll sort of buy and test almost anything. I try to buy a lot of it secondhand. So when I say did something like retired the Alpha, I just, well, I tried something else and liked it better. But I think that one of the things that one of the pieces of hardware that has remained front and center in my setup is that Bravo.
Yep.
And I really hope that somebody comes up with some alternatives as well, because
Yep.
it's not as if they patented the idea, and you
No,
can't
they
really
didn't.
patent an idea like that anyway. Let's not even get into that discussion. But but in addition, it would be wonderful, I think, for someone to either figure out how to carry on what Honeycomb is doing, and I would love it if somebody came out with one that was maybe a level up,
I would
where it's
personally. I was thinking about motorization. I actually saw. I think it was on the Fellas Discord. Somebody was figuring out how to put motors in them. For, even for the little trim wheel, which I'm
yeah.
thinking like, wow, or for the motor. And I'm like, it's a daunting project, but like, I would love that. That'd be cool. You press toga and the actual throttle levers advance on their own, like they
Now
would
you're
in a
getting
real
into
plane.
some FDS land.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
kinds of things. But I just even something that's sturdier from a build perspective.
Sure, yeah.
You
I
know,
will say it's a little there's a little bit of a flimsiness to
right?
the Bravo, but I think that's inherent of you're not paying $1,000 plus for this product.
Correct. I mean, I
Mm,
use one example. If I have both of, let's say I have a two throttle setup, which is most of the time, right?
sure.
You're flying the 737, A320, whatever.
Yeah.
I notice in mine, the left and the right one, when you have them at idle, they're not actually even.
Nope.
They're slightly off between
They
the two.
are. Yep.
It's a really small thing, but it's just an example of that. Or people who have talked about, some of the wires that are on the inside breaking
Yeah.
on the axes, where you run into that kind of problem. And
Which
I
is why
tried.
I don't. Which is why when I keep them at rest, I don't put them on the full bottom detent. They were saying that was the big thing. That's what was
Oh,
causing
yeah, I
that.
don't do that. But
Yeah.
it just as a note on that. So when I talk about something that might be next level to me, maybe it's just it's a little more precise. Maybe we've got more. Maybe it's made of more metal. The handles are better. But if there was that interchangeability and an ability for third parties to get involved like they have here, I know I would be pretty excited about an
Same. Yeah.
opportunity like that. It wouldn't hurt if they also integrated a little more smoothly and a little more easily with the default controls of Microsoft Flight Simulator or X-Plane,
Or
because
it didn't
that
auto bind itself. Oh
right, or
god.
didn't auto bind itself or whatever, because that
Yeah.
continues to be an area that we could have a whole nother entire discussion about, which is why the hell is it so hard to interface your hardware? And there are people who are writing whole software programs out there to do it, and the fact that there's inconsistency amongst developers, inconsistencies amongst hardware, and inconsistency in the sims makes it all the more challenging, which only goes to show you that Honeycomb really broke through on this one, because um, those things can be relatively hard to configure, but people just want to use it, and they've done it consistently. Whether it's using Microsoft Flight Simulator's built-in controls, which are hard to use sometimes when people have made almost all of that stuff work, or you're looking at something like an AAO, an Axis and O's or a SPAD, or an FSU IPC, which I think has sort of fallen off in terms of people using it for hardware configuring. Uh, Time and again, what I see on there is, how do I make my Bravo do X?
Yep.
That is the number one question. How do I make the Bravo do whatever?
Yeah.
So, I think that's a sign of where we are. I will say, much like Felix, if anybody would like us to come and test out their full FDS
Yeah.
setup that they have, please let
Please.
us
Yeah.
know.
Let us know. Get
Put
in
it in the
contact with
comments,
us. Yeah.
right? Send us send
Yeah.
us a DM.
We don't care which one, by the way. It can
Right.
even be the A320.
Right,
I will
right.
be there.
We'll travel, we'll travel, preferably
Yeah.
in the continental United States, but I won't say no right away to somewhere else, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all on a little bit on our bucket list.
Yeah.
I know when we
Definitely.
were flying, when the Concorde came out, I was reminded that there's a Concord simulator still in the UK.
In Brooklands, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that would be a hell of an outing.
That's definitely a bucket list one, is to go to Brooklands
Yeah,
to do that. Yeah.
talk about some hardware.
Oh,
And playing with a few switches. But in any event, we're coming up on our hour, and as
yes.
always, we thank everyone for tuning in.
Thank you very much for tuning in. And
yes, if you left any comments for us, we'll check them. If you left any snide comments, we'll check them. But we're happy to have had you all join us.
Thinking about you, DJ. I saw those comments. I'm just it was DJ. Yeah.
Okay, 100%. Well, we appreciate it, DJ, and I know they do over at the TFDI Discord, where they promoted you to Chief Muckraker or something. I think I saw that in the announcement. So
schoolmaster. He's the schoolmaster now over there.
Right. Yeah. Evidently, they don't know him that well. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's the wolf. Yeah, the
right.
wolf guarding the sheep pen,
the hen
right?
house. Yeah,
the hen house. Yeah, exactly.
Fox guarding the hen house. I'm sorry, not the wolf. You're right. Wolf guarding the sheep. All right, everybody. Thank you, and we'll see you not this next week, but the week after.
Yes.
And as we said, we're hoping we're going to have some very exciting guests.
Yes.
In the next couple of weeks. Talk to you guys.
All right. We'll talk to you guys soon.